Canyon broadcast or on the YouTube?
Pulled up on that.
All right. Do you see us on the live broadcast? All right. It's always good. So, ladies and gentlemen, every Friday, tuning in at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to talk tri and to help get people excited, but to also act as a resource for folks to prepare for, train for, and talk triathlon. So I think this is going to be a really fun show, and I think it's going to be a really educational show, hence the impetus for our first episode. So really excited to learn, I mean, that let's just say this is a point in which we can all learn quite a bit. We're also going to have some world-class pros and experts on board to help us as we go along with this journey. And I thought, what better place to start than sort of ground zero and talk to you and get a little bit of your experience as you did an Ironman off the couch. Absolutely crazy. So where did that idea come from?
It came from me not wanting to do an Everest because everyone was doing Everest. And at this point, doing an Everest, it's like if you don't go sub 8, it's not. Why even post that on Strava? You know? And so it's so dumb how fast you have to go for it to even be noteworthy. And so then I was just thinking of what else I could do, and then I had a friend, Blake Anton, and he did one. He did the first one. I'd never heard of it before, and he made it look way too easy. I mean, there was just a little bit of like Facebook clips, and I was like, oh, dude, he's not even trying. And so then I was like, let's do this, because my triathlon round has been in 2016. I was taking my family to dinner, and there was the whole corral of all these TT bikes in my little town, my town of 500 people in Bass Lake. There was 500 bikes, and it's like, what is happening? There's no bikes here in Bass. And so then I was like, what is going on? And I found out that it was this annual, and I had no swim experience and no run experience, like just nothing. Signed up for the Olympic distance, and the person signing me up, are you sure? Like, and then she's going through the map, and I was, well, maybe not. So I did the sprint distance. What ended up happening though in the sprint distance is they had us go, which I mean, off a rope swing, I'll doggy paddle, like I can swim to the shore and to a boat. I had the horizon, and the next buoy is so far away. And 16, the wife found a sweatsuit thrift store. It was years. If you're not used to it, it's really, it messes you up. Stumbling like 50. I kind of always thought, it would be fun to do a marathon on a project. Like, I had all the tool lake, like right here. Like I had no excuses. I'm no self-done iron go to right here. And so I'm gonna get over the hurdles later. But I did I swam every day for 30 days in 2019, and did huge swim. Not only did I have an amazing wet light plugs, like proper goggles, and just the technique learned over the course of fourth, right? If you could just swim 10 times, like the spinning growth that you'll have in just the big, maybe it was a little less. I paced myself really well. Also, again, though, downhill is hard because you're like deaccelerating, and so you're waxing your legs, then you're going up, and so now you're using different muscles. I don't know what I was thinking. That was a bad decision. I ended up
for sure
just doing it into a parking lot. Like I was like, I can barely walk. But yeah, I
Adam is
mean,
over here shaking his head the whole time, thinking about
Well,
all the ways you just made your life hard. So, Adam, tell us a little bit about what your background is. Obviously, we know each other, and I thought it was really fun to reconnect with you after all these years. Adam
yeah.
is one of the top coaches in America, a CTS coach, but also has some experience with triathlon and coaching triathletes. How about a couple to dos to complement the do not dos we've been lucky enough to have from Tyler?
Yeah, well, I'm shaking my head, Vegan Cyclist, because I did all the do nots and had the negative experiences of said things before. Um, and so I guess in terms of the do's and do's not, I mean, for me, it comes down to training. Like the better you can train, the better you prepare yourself for basically, any element and any specificity when it comes down to whatever's going on in the race. And the better you prepare, the better the race goes, the more fun it is, the more it is, the better it is at the
Oh,
finish line when you're
totally.
celebrating with a beer or cup of coffee or whatever the heck you're doing. So,
well, I'll add to that it really depends on your mindset. Right. And so my mindset going into the Ironman was to go around 12 hours. That was sort of just this like pie in the sky. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But so when that started to become, there's no way this is happening, I really cracked mentally. And I was like, God, I suck. I'm so slow.
Yeah.
I'm the worst. Versus if I had just said, I'm just going to get this done in whatever the time it is.
Yeah.
Then you're able to sort of enjoy it a little more, no matter where your fitness is. And so I think getting an actual goal, an obtainable goal, not biting off more than you can chew, because it's real easy to think, oh, well, on paper, I can swim this fast, I can ride this fast, I can run this fast. It's not that big of a deal. Let's just add those up.
Yep.
But then,
Well, I think that's a big part of it. You have these sort of different layers, and some people are competing to go for a PR, and some people are competing, to distract themselves from daily life, and some people are new to the sport entirely. So I think we've got these sort of three different groups that are coming in and joining in for DIY Try. Me, I've never done a triathlon. So, I mean, I think it's just awesome to, have this professional sporting career. I've been racing mountain bikes all over the world and road and quite a bit of other stuff, but I've never done a triathlon. So it's kind of fresh and new to me. And, for some of us, it's returning, it's brushing off the bike, it's getting the running shoes back on, back out there. And we all know the benefit of being healthy, fit, and having some goals to set by. So, Adam, for someone that's kind of jumping into this, they've ridden a bike, they've done some laps at the pool, or maybe used to be a swimmer back in the day. What words of advice would you say you would give in sort of setting some training goals, some parameters, and how to go about this?
yeah. First of all is to the idea of be realistic with yourself. If you're just getting into it, there's a lot of stuff that's changing. There's a lot of stuff, including your habits, your daily schedule, your muscle soreness, your energy levels, and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of being realistic, it's do something every day to move your fitness forward. And sometimes that is a rest day, but sometimes it's just getting your butt out the door and just starting, the warm up, starting the workout, and the body will loosen up and you'll settle into it. Your body will figure that out. And I think not to overcomplicate it into Vegan Cyclist point, there's a lot that goes on between the ears for sure, because the negative self-talk can really hold you back to even starting the workout. But if you do start that workout and you start going, you'll realize how good it feels, and you'll be like, you know what, I'm moving forward to accomplish my goal. And all of a sudden an hour blows by, you might be done, with the workout, and you feel a hell of a lot better about yourself. So to me, kind of like in summary, is take action before you let the emotion rule you. Action before emotion. Get it done, do the training. And I do think that the physical training will allow you to train what's between the ears along the way.
That is some of the best advice I've heard in a long time, because right now, for me, like the getting into the swim workout, that part is the hurdle for me. It's the foreign part for me. And it's the part I honestly am going to need the most work in this whole thing. What would you say about that, Tyler, as far as that mental aspect?
I mean, the mental aspect is huge. And I think that training wise, it's going to be really hard for you to make any physical gains in such a short period of time on something you've never done before, like running or swimming. And potentially, if you just said, hey, I'm going to start running every day from now until then, you're probably going to get injured. Yeah. So I would almost say work more on technique, because swimming is like insane how much technique there is. And that is, so when I did the swim for 30 days, I had like this really good swimmer come over, and I would go full gas. I was like, I want to see what like a 1 minute 30 pace is, like, which is his no big deal pace. Yeah. And I mean, he's just like gliding like no big deal. And I am just slashing, water's going everywhere. I feel like I'm a motorboat, and then I burn out because I just don't have that technique. And so, even if you're not trying to get a workout in when you go swim, just try to learn how to be efficient. Same thing with running, like just your stride and your gait, and trying to just be technically sound, because there's not a whole lot I think you could do, to bump your fitness, but technical skills wise, that would be a good investment.
Well, I think that's part of it. This is fun too. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to Tyler's point, with something that needs a lot of technique, if you're super new to it, you're probably you want to go find somebody who has a skill set in that. Either hire somebody or find a good friend that can help you at least, say, 3 swim sessions or a run session or something like that. And when I first started racing triathlon, I was lucky enough to live, this is back in college, but I lived in a house full of swimmers. So everybody was like super stoked to help and pitch in, and they're collegiate swimmers, and they, broke down my swim stroke, and within a couple of sessions, I was able to, complete like a 300 without like having to sit by the poolside and take a big gasp for breath, and even bilateral breathing. Like, what the heck is that about, right? So when something is like so technically driven and you're so new, I would definitely seek out somebody who is more of an expert and that has experience in that.
Well,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to say those are some really great pointers when it comes to practically implementing some training. I know that you have a lot of background specifically writing plans for athletes. And for those of you who don't have a plan, there are definitely some pretty awesome plans available, including the DIY Try plans that Adam has written. You can find under athlete Adam Pulford, under coach Adam Pulford on Training Peaks. And we even have some prizes from Training Peaks, including premium memberships. Split Nutrition is also on board with some prizes, and we also have Amp Human on board with some prizes, as well as, of course, the grand prize for a DIY Try is a 7.0 Speed Max from Canyon. That's available in the U.S. only. That's pretty sweet prize. So we have a lot of people really excited, to check in and tune into the bike. I rode the Speed Max 7.0 this morning. It is a rocket ship. Tyler, I know you've got a Speed Max. What was your first takeaway from that bike?
Well, so when I got it, this was kind of mainly the plan for it, but I also wanted to try to do a sub 100 mile in 4 hours, and so that's why I set the bike up. I set the bike up for doing an Ironman, so like not ultra aggressive. It was still. This was something I could ride 100 miles on and be comfortable, right? I didn't want to like get off the bike and have my neck like twisted, because I just didn't have that kind of anyway. So I set it up for a little more comfort, a little less speed, but it was like unbelievable how comfortable it is just when you get the bike dialed. And so that spectrum is so weird because straight out of the box, like doing nothing to it, I feel like I'm front flipping off the bike and I have no control, and I everything hurts. But once you put a little bit of time, and what I did is I set it up on the trainer, and I put my GoPro on like a side view, like a profile.
Yeah.
So I could see my back and I could see my legs. And then I live connected with my phone to the GoPro. So I'm like looking at myself riding, and then I'd get off and I'd adjust the seat a little bit. I used the Speed Max comes with all these different stack heights. And so I was able to readjust the stack height of the aero bars. Yeah. I adjusted the length. I mean, everything is so adjustable. So that was really, really cool. And then when I did my 100-mile effort, I mean, I was so comfortable. Yeah. I think I did almost 260 watts for 4 hours, which for me at 155 pounds is flying.
And very close to 4 hours, right? You were just above or barely above 4 hours, right?
Yeah, and the problem was the course. I had 11 full 180 turns.
That is wicked fast, though. I mean, that's the biggest thing I noticed. Having ridden a traditional road bike for like my whole life, and then you hop on a TT specific bike, I mean, it just wants to rip. I think it's really exciting. The thing just wants to fly. So,
if you've never been on a TT bike before, it's very hard to understand that you basically sit on it and you're doing 25 miles an hour. And it's just awesome. You feel like it's. I remember one time I did a one-way ride from my house down to town, and I had a tailwind. And I ate up all of these KOMs doing like zone 2, right? I mean, I was just listening to music, not even paying attention. And it's just, I get back and it's like KOM, because it was just so fast.
If they just made flippers that did that, and like some shoes, like anyway, we'll work on that. But the bikes, there's definitely a big difference in the equipment. When it comes to the equipment side of triathlon, there's not much you can do in some of the other areas, but of course optimizing the equipment, making sure the fit is right, and then of course training in the position, those are key elements. The biomechanics, of course. Adam, could you speak to any specific elements of the biomechanics and training in that position and how that helps?
Yeah. Again, I'm kind of a fan of simplicity. And so whatever bike you have, that's going to be the fastest one to use rather than dreaming about, something fancy that you don't have. Right. And the more you actually train, the faster you will go. Now, to Tyler's point, I mean, Canyon and other companies out there are making some really crazy speed machines. And yes, when set properly, you will go fast. However, when you're first in an aggressive position like that, you can really hurt yourself if you don't have enough frequency of time in that position. And so my advice is, if you do get a new bike and you're super jazzed up about doing your own or aiming for something, get a neutral fit, kind of like what Tyler was talking about. If you're going long, you want something not super aggressive, but then start with shorter rides more frequently to get your hips, your back, your body in tune with that position, because it is quite different than any other fit. Say Jeremiah, you said, road and mountain bike kind of your whole life. 100%. And all of a sudden, you get into that super specific position. Oftentimes the roadies, we're used to 25, 40K time trials, and that's a very aggressive position meant for only about an hour, so that time period, you can be really aggressive. And if you're an amateur athlete and you're trying to go for something like that and then and look like that, right, and then go try to bang out 100 miles, you're not going to last 50.
Absolutely.
So
that's a fantastic
shorter frequency over time, and let your body adapt.
Great resource.
what's the distance do you think is going to be average for people on this? Because I can't imagine there might be one or two insane people that do an
Well,
Ironman, but most people will do sprint distances or Olympic distances,
yeah,
right?
I
Pick
think
your
it'll be
poison.
probably in there. Yeah, and I'm leaning toward the sprint distance. It's a fun distance. It would be enjoyable. Again, you're
You're too
crazy.
good. You're too good for it, dude. You can't. That's sandbagging. I'm gonna call you out on it if you do a sprint distance.
Well,
You got to at
that's to be
least do Olympic.
discussed. Let's we actually have a great question in from Taylor Marshall. Do you think the high carb plant based is the most optimal diet for cycling in comparison to keto, low carb, or paleo diets? I do notice so much more energy when I have carbs. That is a great question, Taylor. And I would just start with, of course, yes, having high carbohydrate for high workload is super noticeable for me. I would say from the plant-based aspect, let's get that vegan cyclist take on that.
It works for me. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's taken me a long time to dial in what works for me though. And so
Yep.
I think, right now I am so confident in my diet and my program, especially with like long endurance stuff.
Yep.
So with anything that I've done that's like 4 hours plus, I actually go into it fasted. I have nothing in my stomach and I fuel only with liquid calories. So like as much, I mean, high carb, high calorie, but all liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps my body pull energy
Yep.
from that because I don't have this stomach full of food. I don't have this bowl of oatmeal and fruit and toast in my stomach.
Yep.
And so for me, it's just like it's straight energy to the source. And so I use Science and Sports Beta Fuel, which is like a isotonic carb. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. It's like it's supposed to be a longer lasting carb. It's 300 calories per bottle. Mm-hmm. And so it's just very easy to consume 300 calories right away versus like undoing the wrapper while in a TT position and shoving it in your mouth and then trying to chew while you're breathing. It's and so for me, I've just found that's been huge. So during the off the couch Ironman, I didn't take in solid food until until the end of the run. And that was just because I was like so sick of drinking stuff and I was kind of over it. But I mean, for the most part, I was doing 100 carbs per hour until the run. Like I was really on top of trying to bring in as much carbs as I can, because if you're doing, I think between 80 and 100 grams of carbs per hour, as long as you're staying within your zone, you should have unlimited fuel. Right. So if you're doing zone 2, zone 3, and you have that kind of fueling, then it's just a matter of your mind. And it's really strange is if you stay on top of your fueling before you're thirsty, before you're hungry. It is a complete game changer. And it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult sometimes to like be like, oh, well, I'm feeling good. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. I'm going to just keep going. But as soon as and I think there was a study that said as soon as you feel thirsty, you already have a 10% reduction in power.
100%.
And so just, guzzling that sugar water has been, huge for me.
Adam, what would you say in regards to that? There was a lot to sort of take in, and of course there are, multiple layers to fueling your intensity level, what your training focus is for the day. How do you approach the carbohydrate intake and timing?
Yeah, so we know that the human body is pretty adaptable to really any fuel source that you put in front of it. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if you want to go low carb, you do that, and over time the body will adapt. If you want to go high carb, you do that and you do your training, the body will adapt. However, the faster you go, the more carbohydrate you will burn and you will need. That's coming, you're burning muscle glycogen in order to have performance. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, but then when we look at how your brain and your body work together, your brain runs pretty much exclusively on glycogen for an energy source. So when it comes down to preventing bonks, staying acute, as well as fueling your muscles, you're going to need carbohydrate on board, as well as some fat and some protein. For an endurance athlete, in my opinion, it should, like if you're in race mode and all this kind of stuff, you should have the predominant amount of calories coming from carbohydrate, like what Tyler was talking about. And everything that he said, yes, I agree with. And it's, but I think the noise that's in the media right now and all the trends with going keto and all, the reason why some of that works is there's short-term gains for weight loss, and it shores up some of the bad habits that other people have with some sugar addiction and that kind of stuff. So there's some short-term gains going on there. Yeah. But once you are in tune with your body and aware of what's going on, and then come back with a balanced approach with healthy carbohydrate intake, I think you'll find that you go best with plenty of carbohydrate in the system.
Balanced approach, I think, is the best advice. When it comes to that, you want to fuel the fire, is what I like to say. And the highest intensity takes the most carbohydrates. If you're taking a day off the bike, less of an issue for sure. So I got another great question that came in from Rush Track. How does your outlook on training change without any race targets on the calendar? I could say personally for me, it's definitely been a roller coaster of, set goal, chase goal, attain goal, and then there's no goal, and it's like, you kind of get bummed out. There's, more cancellations come up, and I think that's where this DIY try really comes into play, because during the summer, spring and summer, I noticed how much joy I had just going out and doing the efforts, doing the intervals, or setting up the new gear, getting the new tires on my mountain bike, and then getting out and testing them and sort of perfecting and chasing. And of course, the endorphins you get from activity and from racing are just awesome. So I think that, as we look to the fall, it's great to get some more goals and to sort of chase those. What would you say, Tyler?
Well, so the learning curve with anything new is so steep in the beginning that you will make gains every day not knowing what you're doing. Just do the new thing and gains will come your way, and you're going to feel good. When you're just nailing gains. The more and more time you put into something, the more that plateaus off. So like to make a 2% gain in my fitness right now takes a tremendous amount of work. And so that's where I think me doing triathlons, or just the whole, like, my motto is ride all the bikes, mountain bike, gravel, TT, what moto, it doesn't matter, BMX. And so whenever you're starting to feel like, man, I'm plateauing, I'm fizzling out on the roadside, choose a new discipline and go down that path, because you'll still keep your fitness up. You're not going to have this plummet in your fitness, but it's going to be directed in a new way where you're going to have new roads, new challenges, new gear to look at. Like, it's just this whole new thing, but still in the same realm, right? It's still the same dimension. So like going out for a mountain bike ride, is just like, wow, this is so amazing. I didn't realize how difficult it is to go downhill. You think you're great, and then you see these other guys who are like 65, wearing like cargo shorts, and they're just blowing you out of the water, and you're like, what the hell? So then now that's like burns that fire. So now
gets you more excited.
You got all this motivation for something new. And I think that people should keep that across the board. Like, you should have your A sport, right? Whatever the thing is you really focus on, but you should have B, C, D, E sports, right?
I didn't expect such wisdom from you, but that's actually really, really good. What would you say, Adam, as far as that aspect of how does the outlook on training change without target races on the calendar? This is a really, really front and center question right now for collegiate coaches, for cycling, but also for ball sports. A lot of Olympic sports are setting their sights to next year. So how does this change things?
So I haven't met an athlete yet that says they're perfect at everything and I no longer need to work on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when there's no competition for a while, what's the opportunity? You get to work on whatever you're not good at. And so you have time.
Excellent.
And so whether you're a professional athlete, a collegiate athlete, or an amateur athlete, all of my athletes, we've gone back to the basics of a strength and weakness orientation. Say, what are your weaknesses? Let's develop those now. And for my master's athletes in particular, or age group triathletes, it's been wonderful because we've had this time period to really build a strong aerobic base that time crunched athletes normally don't have time to do that. So
like it.
You got to look for the opportunity in every challenge. And right now during COVID-19, in my opinion, it's having time to do that. If you're lucky enough to, have a job, have the resources, all that kind of stuff.
That's a great point. You look at most athletes or avid athletes, they're in it for the long run, but they often will look at the short term and try to turn it around. And I think with DIY Try, it's a little different. This is for fun, folks. This is like, hey, you've been working all summer, or maybe you haven't and you want to check out triathlon, jump in, have fun with it. But to your point, Adam, I think that is it's sort of like the tagline of the year. You can find opportunity in adversity. I've been really lucky to do some stuff I've never been able to do before this summer, one of which is going to be, hey, I'm going to go and do a triathlon, and some version of this thing is going to go. It might not be pretty, but it's definitely really awesome to get out there and do something different, shake it up, and to work on some of my weaknesses. So we got a couple other great questions from Sam Keller. Which is your least favorite discipline? I am going to go with, it's not least favorite, but it's least proficient at swimming for sure. Tyler, what's your least favorite or least proficient?
Anyone who says they like running has not ridden a bike. so running is terrible, and swimming at first it's kind of sucks, but once you find the technique, there's something about like just how efficient you can be that kind of gets sort of fun. But man, running is just
Adam.
I'll go with you, JB. Swimming is pretty challenging, and for me, like I was a terrible swimmer. But to Tyler's point, once I found proficiencies, like you find flow there, and it is pretty fun. But I mean, jumping in a pool, finding pool times, if that's your thing, that can be pretty frustrating. I was lucky enough to compete first in like Minnesota and Wisconsin, so a land of thousands and thousands of lakes up there. And so being outside and doing some open water swimming is pretty fun. But yeah, I like the bike for sure. I was a pretty good runner. Swim always got me.
One thing that I want to say is triathletes are always so ripped, right? Like physically, they are one of the best looking specimens. All cyclists, like the more fit you are as a cyclist, you look terrible.
Yeah, the worse you look. Yeah, you got to see Phil Gaiman at his prime, and you're like, whoa, man.
Yeah.
No, this guy's in his best form of the year right now.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, like there's that picture of Chris Froome where he's like naked on the bike, and it's just like not good. You don't want to be like that. And so when I got done with my Ironman, my lower abs, my shoulders, everything, my whole posture sort of just was better. And not that it really made like that big of a difference, but when I looked in the mirror, I was like, dude, I don't look so malnourished.
Definitely.
It was really cool to have that feeling of overall fitness, because as a cyclist you get really like, what are my quads doing and what is my heart doing, and that's it, versus once you start running, it's the whole package, especially with swimming, and you feel better overall.
Yeah, I would say that the swimming, just a little bit I've done, and a bit of running, your muscle tone is different. Yeah, and doing the core work, I mean, it feels good to be in good shape. And so that's my primary motive, and I think most people's primary motive is to have fun, get in shape, try, win. Those are all sort of like the carrot at the end, but really a lot of it's the enjoyment of training and getting into shape. Funny question, Kyle McCann. He asked, we all want to know the answer, who would win in a head-to-head, Jeremiah or Vegan? And, if it's going long like that Ironman type distance, then I am definitely up a creek because,
Wait. Are we talking like triathlon specific, or do we get to choose the competition?
Oh, I have no idea where he's going with
it. It doesn't matter. Spoiler alert, it doesn't matter. Jeremiah is an amazing rider. And so I would have to be at my all-time highest, best peak fitness just to hang on your wheel. I mean, when I was riding with you at the Alpine Fondo, which is funny because you were like, oh, I'm going to ride a Grail. I'm gonna ride a fat tire bike. Like, you were playing it down, and then all of a sudden you roll up on your air road, like super serious. And
that's how I did it.
I just remember like the first KOM segment, dude, you were just weaving in and out of everyone, and I was like, okay. I had nothing.
That's on the bike.
I couldn't do nothing.
I'm sure, Kyle, I know exactly what you meant, and you meant triathlon. I would say this. I would say if it's a short enough, if it was a sprint distance, I might have a chance just because, the swim is I think proportionally, and you have to correct me or not, Adam, but it's like the shortest swim to bike ratio, right? The sprint.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to get like super nerdy, if it's a sprint distance with a bike heavy leg, I'll go Jeremiah, but if it's Olympic to Ironman, I'll probably go Tyler.
All right. I guess we're just gonna have like a.
It's a specificity, man. Like you got a huge VO2 and you can go all day, but like that swim and the run, man.
You don't understand the swim. I have this technique where I can go backwards if I just get that bicycle kick going. Like I will actually go backwards in the water. So it's really going to be something funny and but fun too. And I'm up for a little bit of friendly competition, some friendly wagering. So we've got another question. What do you think? How long will you be able to keep up with the world leaders age-wise? John Ferdinand is already 39. Who, me? Oh, well, I'm not too worried about that. I think it's been really an eye-opener. I would say some of the most exciting things I've learned about sports and cycling is really good as you get older. It is one of the more forgiving sports as far as being able to compete at a high level, maintain efficiency, aerobic capacity, if you keep on training. And so what I found is if I train as hard as a 23-year-old, I can, be up there with some of my best performances. So that question is, at least all wide open. I was doing a KOM in the middle of the Alpine Loop Grand Fondo. Last week, we had our sort of Fondo in place, or whatever you want to call it, version of the event. But, my backyard is actually on the event. And I took a KOM from Ben King. I don't know how hard he was trying, but it was over 400 watts for like 10 minutes. And, so it's close. It's close to my best. But, I'm just trying to see what I can do. And the cool thing is my swimming, though, I could increase it by 100%. It's just mind-blowing. And like my running right now, I could get 30% faster than my PR run. So here I am back at like 20 years old looking at these huge gains. It's really kind of cool.
Well, and it's fun. It's fun because the amount of energy you have to put in to make those gains is not significant. So you can, with just, again, if you just swam 10 days in a row, like the amount that you will improve is so enormous. So when I did my 30 days, it was really interesting that by about day 15, I kind of plateaued in how much like I was willing to invest in it. Like I got everything, the basics down, but now once you're starting to try to really start to go fast, then that was like, okay, it's going to take a little more time, but it's really crazy once you get it down and you've got all these different components of how to breathe. Mm-hmm. That was what I found was so strange. How does anyone breathe in the water? My face is in the water. And so then naturally I want to hold my head above the water the whole time, so I'm just like, and that's not fast. And so it took me a really long time to get comfortable, because if you're a cyclist, you can breathe whenever you want. You
Yeah.
can also hydrate whenever you want. Running it's so hard to drink while running. You're just splashing everywhere, and then it's ugh. And so breathing in the swim and fueling on the run, if you've never practiced that, that should be something that you should give
Yeah.
a little bit of time to
And
before
if
jumping
you
out
do
there.
those little bits of practice, you're going to see some big gains. I think it'll be really enjoyable to catch up with some of the best athletes in the sport. We've got Sarah Crowley. We've of course got Jan Frodeno joining us on race eve. That is super exciting. We'll get some very fun questions in with him. We also have Carrie Lester and Scott DeFilippis joining us to talk a bit about their personal motives for triathlon and what keeps them in the sport and enjoying the sport. And we've got a nice lineup of questions. So we're going to be hitting these episodes every Friday, learning a lot as we go, and ultimately taking you along on the journey. So I think it's going to be really a super fun time.
I have a training question. And so traditionally, I think a lot of people, when they're looking at endurance tempo efforts, will train endurance and tempo. If you're going to do a 100-mile ride, I think a lot of people go and do 100-mile rides. But I've personally, and my coach has found a lot of success in doing, if I'm going to do a 100-mile effort, my training is high intensity, low volume to bump my ceiling. And so then when I go into that big effort, my fatigue is actually low and my fitness is high, versus if I'm just doing major endurance tempo efforts, my fatigue is high and my fitness didn't really get any sort of bump. And so training for specifically for this, for someone who maybe have never had a training program, what kind of workouts could you give them, or advice on, 2 workouts a week, and what would that look like?
All right. Well, I mean, it's 3 sports, so we have to at least have 3 workouts for the week. But I would say tailoring those to your weakness is going to be, those are the important ones. If you're a swimmer and you swim like once a day, then you're going to have to get out there and do a little work on the bike. Conversely, if you're a runner, hardly ever swim, you're going to have to make yourself get in the pool. So, Adam, it's a tough question, but what would be those 2 key workouts that are going to propel you the most if you're time crunched, or just, wanting to join in for fun, and why?
Yeah. So threshold-based training is going to be the best bang for the buck for if you're looking at doing something in 6 weeks. Really, no matter the duration, and let's just assume it's going to be Olympic distance and shorter. Threshold-based training, meaning like the effort on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is like an all-out puke fest, it's going to feel more like a 7 or an 8. And that could be swim, bike, or run.
Yep.
And, for an Olympic distance or even a sprint distance triathlon, the bike is going to be a longer component to it. And so I'd focus on probably the bike, and the run. But you also want to determine what the strengths and weaknesses are, right? And develop those weaknesses so they're not hindering you as much. But 2 to 3 threshold workouts per week. One, you just go like one on the swim, one on the run, call it good, and move the zone 2 or the endurance work around that. Or if you're already a pretty good cyclist and you want to focus on the swim and the run, do a bunch of threshold there, and then just ride and don't worry about the bike as much. But yeah, threshold's going to be where I put my money on that.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, as Tyler said, tapering back as you're getting closer to your competition as far as the volume. And then, keeping the intensity up. There's no doubt that high intensity is a huge payoff. And I think it gets under emphasized for endurance sports. So when you're looking at racing, when you're looking at hitting your PRs or best performances, intensity is, for sure, without a doubt, a huge bang for the buck. And you can get it done quickly.
Can I say one thing, JB? Because I don't think I answered the question fully.
Yeah.
A good threshold workout, say for the run, might be 4 by 8 minute efforts at that level 8 out of 10, or 3 by 10 at that level 8 out of 10 RPE, and 3 to 5 minutes of recovery in between. If you're looking for example workouts, that's the kind of duration and recovery that you want. You can also do that on the bike, 4 by 8 or 3 by 10, that kind of thing. If you're in the pool, it's going to look a little differently because it's chopped up. The way we write swim workouts and swim culture is a little different, but you can also use duration. You probably want to go more toward like 2 or 4 minute efforts with 30 seconds recovery in between for anybody looking for example workouts.
Yeah, that's great. No, this is really useful stuff. And again, the bike side, I definitely have a good handle on, but I'm just sponging this stuff up. And it's really kind of fun to actually go from expert on one side to, kind of beginner on the other side. Joe has a great question. How do you track your personal progress? Is it all about speed? I would start by just chiming in that for me personally, no, a lot of times it's just about being comfortable, for instance, in the position. So if I spend enough time on the speed max that I can really hammer a nice steady tempo, then that's a progress. That's a real progress. And for me in running, since I don't even remember the last time I ran over 3 miles, I cannot even remember. In order to do a longer triathlon, me just finishing is actually a really great way or metric to track progress. So Tyler, what would you say is tracking progress for you as you get ready to take on yours truly in the triathlon world universe championships?
So I think it's really important that your mindset is that if you've never done a triathlon before, that this is your first data point. So don't overthink it. Just go get this data point. And almost that the worse it is, the better it's going to be in the future, because the better you're going to have to come over that, that you'll be able to increase.
Yeah.
So just go get that data point and go, okay, well, and if there's any way for you to track the time via each segment, what was your swim like? What was your transitions like? What was your bike like? Run like, so then you have those times to now set some sort of progression gauge, right? I think a lot of people will be like, well, I'll just see how everyone else does this, and I'll see what their times are like. I'll compare myself to them secretively, and then next year I'll give it a go. Don't do that. There's too much pressure that you're putting on this future thing. Like, you'll always be able to be better. So who cares? Just go do it now, figure it out. And then once you have these data points, now you can look at how you're progressing and what progression metric matters to you. Yep. So for me, I don't even look at speed. I never have speed on my computer. To me, it's irrelevant because of elevation or, what bike you're on, the terrain, if you're in a group or not. And so my metrics are all power based, weight to power to weight. So what kind of power am I doing? At what sort of weight am I holding? And, which is so difficult because the more power you put out, the more weight you do. And then to try to separate the two, to lose weight while gain power. Yeah. That's my gauge.
Well, I really like the goals relative to what you're trying to get out of it. Or your progress being tracked against what you're trying to get out of it. Adam, what do you think?
So unless we are competing for the world championships or gold medal, most of us are competing against each other, like you versus you sort of thing. Yeah. So for swim and bike, it's pace and heart rate, and you want to track yourself to yourself, right? So if you're going the same speed, because speed is important. If you want to go the same speed, but all of a sudden you're doing it 5 beats per minute lower, that's progress. Oh, yeah. Additionally, if you went slightly faster, even if it was a little slightly elevated heart rate, not 10 beats above, but if you go faster, same heart rate, okay, now we're getting faster on the bike. Huge fan of measuring everything by power. and power, heart rate, and speed. And so you want to get really good with your data, track everything in Training Peaks, and start to look at week to week and month to month what a duration and speed looks like with that power, with that pace in your training, and compete against yourself, you versus you. And don't worry about what Tyler's doing. Don't worry about what JB's doing, unless you want to do some trash talking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll do a little bit of that too. That's a great
Well,
segue, just talking about Training Peaks. I think going to Training Peaks, setting up a free account, it's a fun way to just log on and drop your Strava and heart rate files on there, and you'll start to really gather some more knowledge about your training if you track it and take good notes. I think that's another real key aspect. Again, your ability to run, ride, swim will change over time as you get more proficient. You'll see areas where you're gaining and areas where you still need to work. And I think that's a really fun piece of advice. I think that's fantastic. We'll take one more question and then we're going to wrap this up soon. But what advice would you give to someone who's trying to go from couch to triathlon, asking for a friend, Robert Weaver? Great question. It's not a bad question at all. This is a fantastic question, because the whole thing really is just getting, in shape, feeling good, getting out there, dusting off the bike. My biggest sentiment, Robert, is to make it fun and make it personal to you. If you have a bad knee, man, get a skateboard. Just do this thing. Get out there. If you live in Alaska and the pool is closed, or you live 100 miles from a pool, then do the run, bike, where you bike a mile, where you run, bike, run, and get it done. Run a mile, bike 10 miles, run 2 miles, make it fun, have fun with it. What would you say, Vegan, since you have done the ultimate in suffering and self-torture, off the couch Ironman, what would you say to Rob?
So the advice would be to not go off the couch to an Ironman. but the sprint distance, a sprint distance is doable by anyone. I mean, you may have, when I did my very first sprint distance, there was this swimmer. I mean, just like the most swimming dude ever. And he won the swim, then got off, and he got on like a 1980 Huffy with flip-flops, right?
There
So
you go.
he's on this busted bike, like, a $50 bike with flip-flops, and he rode it took him like 2 hours. It was ridiculous. But he did it, you know what I mean? And he didn't have the right equipment, but he just went out there and did it. And I was like, man, that's what this is all about, is just going out there and doing it, and then reassessing afterwards. And so again, at a sprint distance, you can for sure come off the couch with really ultimately no training. And just, if you're in the right mindset of when I'm done, and whatever that time period is, I'm going to be so much happier. So future you is going to be stoked. And just keep that in your mind. And just like, for me personally, I always envision the dinner I'm going to have after a big effort, right? Go. And that's just like what's dangling in front of me.
That sounds like a good t-shirt. It sucks now, but the future you is going to be stoked. That's going to be like on the back. I love it. I think just getting out there and doing something, keeping your goals, just light. Keep them light, keep them fun, and get out there and do something with us. Make sure to go. I'll put the link to the landing page for DIY Try. It's a back page on Canyon, and then you can sign up to try to win the Canyon Speed Max and other prizes. Rob, I hope you join in with us. And as you go through your training throughout the month, we'll also have some swag opportunities if you use the hashtag Canyon DIY Try. Should be a whole lot of fun. And it's been just fantastic having you guys on board for this broadcast today. I think it's been, just really getting me excited to get out there and find some good places to swim. I'm going to be doing the open water swimming It's going to be a little chilly, but hey, also it's sure beats doing the same old, same old. So I'm really pumped on it. Adam, thanks so much for having us or coming on board with us for the 360 Lab Tri Talk, and of course, Tyler. It's fantastic to see you put yourself through the ringer and do ridiculous stuff, so we don't have to learn the hard way. So we'll tune back in next Friday, same time, a little more dialed, a little fitter, and hopefully have done a little bit more training too. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Thanks, guys, and we'll tune back in next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, JB.
Alrighty, here. This thing going off here.